Welcome to the 2025 Round Hill Association Candidates Forum. I'm Brendan D. Simone, the president of the Round Hill Association and the moderator this evening. I want to thank Round Hill Association board member Lee Ressler, who works tirelessly year in and year out to organize this forum. For those of you who are new to the area, the Round Hill Association was founded in 1942 to, quote, preserve and enhance the quality of life in our vicinity and the town as a whole. The RHA encompasses some 1,200 diverse households throughout the neighborhood. We hosted Backcountry Neighbor Day just this past weekend, and on October 30th, we'll host our second annual Halloween event on the grounds of St. Barnabas Church. In addition to social events, we keep a watchful eye on local issues that affect our community, including growth of Westchester Airport, development, traffic, and safety in our area. I wanted to highlight some recent Round Hill Association successes, some things you may not hear about. Just last week, a member received a note in their mailbox about a stray chicken found in their yard. We posted that on our social media account. Within hours, through a series of DMs, texts, and phone calls, it was determined that it was actually a stray rooster. And although we were unable to reunite it with its owner, we found it a new home. On a more serious note, 3 years ago, the Round Hill Association hired a traffic engineer to help us approach the town about a variety of safety and traffic concerns throughout Backcountry. Through many meetings, door knocking, community organizations, petitions, and email outreach, just last month, the Board of Selectmen agreed to approve an application to the state to lower the speed limit on one of our most notorious backcountry curvy roads. Our fate is now in the hands of the state DOT, but it was a huge win for the neighborhood nonetheless. We are constantly looking out for our friends and neighbors and advocating for the best interests of our community. We welcome your ideas and feedback. Tonight we have an annual candidates debate. We'll first meet our candidates for the office of Greenwich's Selectmen, in this case, Selectwomen, Republican incumbent Lauren Rabin, and her Democratic challenger, Rachel Connor. Second, we'll meet and hear from the candidates for Greenwich's first Selectmen's office, Republican incumbent Fred Camillo, and a Democratic challenger, Anthony Moore. The evening is broken into two 45-minute segments, one for each of the candidates. We'll have a quick break in between. Questions have been submitted from our membership and vetted by two Round Hill Association board members, representatives of both Democratic and Republican parties. For each question, we alternate who goes first. Each candidate has 2.5 minutes to introduce themselves. Candidates will then have 1.5 minutes to answer each question, and each candidate will be given 3 minutes for closing statements. A coin toss beforehand determines who will speak first. We do ask that you please keep any applause and cheers to the end. So without further ado, I will introduce the candidates for Greenwich's Selectwomen. Welcome Rachel Connor and Lauren Rabin, and Rachel will go first.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you to the Round Hill Association for organizing this event every year. Thank you, all of you, for being here. It's a pleasure to be back with you, and thank you to Brendan being our fearless moderator year after year. I'm Rachel Connor. I'm a 25-year resident of Greenwich, 20 of which have been just 2 miles down the road on John Street. I'm a parent of 4 young women who attended Greenwich Public Schools, and I'm an active member of the community. I served on the Parkway School PTA and then on the RTM in District 10 for 2 terms, during which I was one of the key members to bring forward a sense of the meeting resolution for a fire station in Northwest Greenwich. And most recently, I served as state representative for the 149th District. And I advocated for Greenwich in a place that often ignores our community's needs, in Hartford. And in that role, I brought back millions for Greenwich. $20 million for the reconstruction of Central Middle School, $6.5 million for the Glenville Corridor Traffic Safety Project, $400,000 to upgrade the elevators at the library, and so much more. I know how to get things done and will continue to fight for our town to improve the quality of life and safety of town residents. Roadblocks don't faze me. I will always try to find a solution to a problem. I'm proud to be running with Anthony Moore and an amazing slate of candidates for the BT, the Board of Ed, and town offices. We're running because we love Greenwich, but we know it can be so much better with real leadership. Plan as you go isn't cutting it. We can't maintain excellence by ignoring the upkeep of our town's treasures, many of which are from the last century, our schools, our recreational facilities, and our landmarks. And we can maintain these assets while keeping our taxes low. That requires planning and leadership. We can have a town that works for everyone and make sure that families and businesses have what they need to build a future here, just like my family and I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Okay, so thank you to the Round Hill Association, Brendan, our moderator, and to everyone in the audience tonight. Welcome to those who have called Round Hill home for many years, and to those who have recently discovered the beauty and community spirit of this special part of Greenwich. You may know me as incumbent Selectwoman, but I'd like to introduce you to the person behind the position. My single mother moved us to Coscob in 1972, and as a middle child, I learned responsibility early. My mother worked 2 jobs to make ends meet, and like many families in Greenwich, we were on reduced lunch. My father was a public transit worker in Westchester, and my stepfather was a career fireman in Thornwood, New York. From them, I learned the value of hard work, humility, and service. Since 1995, I've served Greenwich in many ways, through our PTAs, the RTM, the Board of Education, and now the Board of Selectmen. Along the way, I've been honored with several community awards and have balanced my service with a 40-year career in technology, leading high-performing teams in Fortune 500 companies. My husband, David, and I have been married for 36 years, and we are proud parents of 2 sons, Scott and Eric, and Scott and his wife, Eureka, have given us 2 wonderful grandsons, Noah and Leo. And as a Taurus, I am known for reliability, patience, and steady determination, qualities that have served me well and helped me lead Greenwich through the COVID-19 pandemic. I stayed calm under pressure and focused on keeping residents safe, informed, and connected. I also understand and appreciate what makes Round Hill unique. Its scenic beauty, open spaces, and residents that deeply are committed to preserving its rural character. Your priorities are local control, safety, and fiscal responsibility, and they mirror my own. I truly believe my entire life has led me to this position, and I continue to work on behalf of all Greenwich residents, including this remarkable Round Hill community.
Thank you, Lauren. We are filming tonight, and will be posted tomorrow on GCTV's YouTube channel for anybody who wants to go back and see it. First question for Lauren. A special session of the Connecticut legislature has been called to address affordable housing after Governor Lamont vetoed a bill that would take away much local control. If elected, how do you see your role to work with our local legislators, the governor, our local land use boards, and private advocacy groups and opponents?
That's a great question. As the incumbent, I have been working with our local legislators that reach out to me and that I have reached out to support local control. I'm also the Board of Selectmen liaison to the Affordable Housing Trust, which has created funds for developers to try to defray the cost of creating additional housing in Greenwich. I think everybody who lives in Connecticut knows that there's a lot going into building units. We've got expensive land, we've got expensive labor, we have contracts that have to be adhered to for prevailing wages. We have expensive materials. Has anybody done anything on their house lately? We also have the laws, and then we also have the ability to, lend money. So those are some of the things that come into play with creating affordable housing. I have testified in Hartford verbally and through written communication about the fact that Greenwich is very unique. I have also tried to express that we have a lot of naturally occurring affordable housing. 830G is a law that has not worked. It's been on the books for over 30 years. It needs to be reformed. We need to be able to count the housing that is for private school teachers and administration, hospital employees, and all the ADUs and cottages and all the other things that exist in our town.
Thank you. Rachel.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that the special session hasn't yet been called.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah, we moved to Greenwich 25 years ago. This is our home, and like all of you, I don't want the state telling us where and how to build housing. And I remain steadfast in that commitment, in the commitment to protecting local zoning control. And I have voted that way repeatedly when I served as state representative, occasionally even breaking with my party to do so. We know our town better than people in Hartford, and I believe that zoning and development decisions should be driven by local leaders, local decision makers, because we know best about the town's needs and infrastructure. My opponents have tried to paint me as someone who opposes local control, but that's just not true, and I have the voting record to prove it. There's no arguing that our town and state need more housing. Insufficient housing hurts our businesses who struggle to find employees. We want seniors to be able to afford to stay in Greenwich. We want young families to move to our town. And we want our teachers, firefighters, and police officers and other town employees to be able to both live and work in Greenwich. And in the last 12 years, we've increased the housing that qualifies as affordable here in town by a mere 1.2%. And so that's why our town deserves leaders who are going to stand up and fight for local control.
Thank you, Rachel. Next question for Rachel. Clean energy. Greenwich lags many towns in renewable adoption. What's your plan to accelerate clean energy use for homes, businesses, and municipal operations?
Thank you. Yes. When I was state representative, I got many emails from constituents who were concerned about their electric bills. Connecticut has among the highest electric rates in the country, and that affects all of us. Residents, small businesses, town government. We need to be looking at how best to utilize renewable energy sources to save money for the town. And there are savings available. For instance, the solar panels at the Common Eastern Greenwich Civic Center will provide 70% of the energy needs for the building. And that's going to save taxpayers money. We need to explore doing that in other buildings throughout town and using renewable energy wherever we can. At the BET public hearing last January, I urged the BET to allocate funding for an energy director focused on energy management, cost reductions for municipal buildings, schools, and infrastructure, and other budget-reducing measures. This role is vital to creating a resilient and efficient Greenwich and will save taxpayer money. Unfortunately, the position wasn't funded, and town leadership has been silent and doesn't have a plan. The first Selectmen also created the Energy Management Advisory Committee, EMAC, and they've published annual reports and made recommendations, and yet nothing's been done. It's the role of town leadership to take these recommendations and see how we can actualize them. These are pressing issues, and ignoring them won't make them go away. We need to have a strategic plan for the town.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you. So energy costs, I think we were all shocked about a year ago when we got our electric bills and saw the public benefits charges. And Connecticut is, I think, the second highest state in the country for energy costs. I totally support renewable energy. I'm on the Central Middle School Building Committee. We spent a lot of time evaluating all of the different options that we could use for the school that could help reduce our energy consumption, as well as be maintained by the personnel that actually maintain the buildings of all our schools. And the EMAC, and then Energy Management Advisory Committee, isn't a first Selectmen committee, it's a Board of Selectmen committee. We've interviewed, we've put the people on the board. It's balanced between Republicans, unaffiliated, and Democrats. They have done annual reports. They have worked with our planning and zoning to produce expectations for any new buildings that are coming, whether that's private, whether it's commercial. So totally support anything that we could do, and anything that our state senator and representatives in Hartford are doing to control our costs. You know, affordable housing, when I was younger, used to be called low-income housing, and I'd like to keep more of our income for our Greenwich residents.
Thank you, Lauren. Next question starts with Lauren. What do you see the role of neighborhood associations like the Round Hill Association and others throughout town in working with town government?
I think neighborhood associations are vital to communicate with elected officials, whether that's the Board of Selectmen, whether it's the RTM, anybody that's in a position to create policy, to make things happen. We have probably 11 or 12 different neighborhood associations, and I know between Fred, Janet, and myself, we are participating in different neighborhood meetings. We've been very open to agenda, our Board of Selectmen agenda, planning. Any neighborhood association, any person, as a matter of fact, could ask for something to be on our agenda, and we'll take it up and we'll listen to what the concerns are. It's definitely easier to work with a neighborhood association than necessarily individuals, because you have that collective voice. So that really helps bring issues and even good things. We do get kudos sometimes to us, so that we can understand like the magnitude of something. Totally support listening and learning from our neighborhood associations, including Round Hill.
Thank you. Rachel?
Thank you. Yes, I agree that neighborhood associations are critical to the functioning of the town. We need to, our role is, as select people, is to listen to the residents, listen to the communities, and our neighborhood associations are the perfect first point of contact for that. And so I believe they're crucial in the work that we do. We need to hear from residents. We represent residents, and so and we also advocate for residents. So listening and hearing from the neighborhood associations is critical to the work that we need to do. But also, we need to have town halls so that we make sure that we're not missing anybody who might not be, part of a neighborhood association. And we need to reach out into the districts and different neighborhoods to make sure that we're encouraging people to attend public hearings, to testify at public hearings, to, as I said before, have more town halls. Because rather than assuming that we know best, we have to listen to the community, we have to engage with our community and talk with them.
Thank you. This is for Rachel. Often police, firemen, and teachers work in Greenwich but don't live here. In emergencies, they may not be able to get to Greenwich. After they gain experience and have families, they often decide to work closer to home. How should the town address this skills drainage?
Yes, and I've heard from Chief Heavey, Chief McHugh, and as well as the superintendent of schools that being able to retain police officers, firefighters, teachers is a big challenge because people are having difficulty affording to live here. And I think we need to make sure that we are, competitive in the salaries that we offer. I know sometimes it can be, sometimes, how do I say, there's more of an incentive to be trained and then go back to your own community, but I think we need to be doing what we can and making sure that our teachers, our police officers, our firefighters have the resources that they need to do the job that they've elected to do. And this issue of public safety as well as schools has come up in all the canvassing that I've done throughout the district. Again, I think we need to make sure that all of our town departments have the resources that they need to do their jobs. And I'm committed to finding a plan to make that happen, to have safer roads, safer schools, and...
Great, thank you. Lauren.
Thank you. We do need to have our employees be able to live in town. Unfortunately, when we talk about affordable housing, the salaries that, some of our public officials, whether it's, well, not public officials, we're not paid that well, the firemen and the police and the teachers, they don't qualify for affordable housing because they make, their income is too high. So we need what we call workforce housing, and to create sort of that middle opportunity. And I think we could do that with, smart development, opening up units for, the workforce so that they can stay in town. I also think there's another side to the coin. I had the fortune of going to the Citizens Police Academy where I rode with an officer, and we actually went through a whole training to understand everything that police do. And a lot of them, just in today's society where you just don't know where the next person's going to come out and do something or not to you. They don't want to live in the town that they're either policing or schooling because they don't want to run into somebody that they arrested who might retaliate. So I think there's definitely the desire, and I support that, but I just wanted to make the point that not everybody wants to live here, unfortunately, or fortunately.
That's a good point. Thanks. Next question starts with Lauren. How should the town allocate funds for beautification projects, such as gardens, parks, bump outs, balanced against funding health and safety projects?
Oh, that's a great question. I think every project is unique and kind of fit for purpose. So I don't know that I could just broadly sweep and say, you know, we're going to do X% for beautification, X% for safety. I think it depends on each neighborhood. I think it depends on, you know, what's in each neighborhood. And the private residents, I know like a lot of the cul-de-sacs, they have, you know, the circle and, you know, people will maintain it. We have a lot of garden clubs. Etc. We are so fortunate in this town to have so many volunteers that care about things, that are passionate about, whether, you know, it's volunteering in schools, whether it's being on a board, commission, and committee. I think the opportunity is to just sort of coalesce and decide, you know, what can be funded by government. So you're basically asking people to, you know, make those choices, or what could be funded by personal passion and public-private partnerships. So I don't have an answer for a concrete percentage. I think it depends on each neighborhood and, you know, the ability to participate with the residents that live there or the businesses that are located in those locations.
I'll point out that the Round Hill Association does maintain over a dozen traffic islands in that country.
Thank you. That was the term, traffic islands.
Rachel, sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I think it's important to have beautification projects throughout, you know, the different neighborhoods throughout town. I do think that first and foremost, we need to prioritize infrastructure. And according to a League of Women Voters report from 2023, we have a backlog of capital projects worth over $1 billion. And I think as select people, as representative of the town and residents in the town, I think our responsibility is to address some of those projects first. And you know, if we can do them in tandem, that's great. But I think it's really incumbent on future town leaders to prioritize critical infrastructure to avoid costly emergencies. I often refer to the Grass Island water treatment plant. The Department of Public Works went before the BET earlier this year requesting funds to harden the plant to protect it from sea level rise, and the BET did not include that in the capital plan. If we have a severe storm, if we have the sea level rise, or when we have the sea level rise, you know, the risk of that plant having to shut down and sewage entering the sound or potentially getting backed up into people's homes or the sewer system, you know, that's a severe and costly emergency. So I think our responsibility should be to prioritize infrastructure. And like I said, if we can do beautification project, that's wonderful. And I'm getting flashing lights.
Great, thanks, Rachel. Next question is for Rachel. What can you do to lower the temperature on the divisiveness and polarization in local politics?
Yeah, I have 4 daughters who are young women, and it's something that keeps me up at night to think about what the future will look like for my children. I'm worried about the erosion of norms and democracy in our country. When we moved to Greenwich, we found a vibrant and diverse community. We have people from different parts of the world, people who have lived here for generations. We're all neighbors, and we should be able to talk to each other. I pride myself on the fact that I was a member, that when I was a member of the RTM and I was state representative, I worked collaboratively with colleagues on both sides of the aisle, whether it was for improved fire coverage in Northwest Greenwich or on legislation in Hartford. And I continuously engaged with constituents, even if their views differed from mine. I got a lot of emails from constituents. Not all of them agreed with me. Not all of them were favorable or respectful, but I listened and I responded respectfully, because that's what leadership does. And perhaps most importantly, I run multiple campaigns and I've never lied about my opponents or their records. And I will continue to listen and engage with residents regardless of party, because that's our job. If elected, I won't yell at constituents for asking questions I don't like. I won't prohibit people from speaking at public meetings, and I won't berate or lecture people with different views. We need to listen to all of our constituents, all of the residents throughout town.
Thank you. Lauren.
Thank you. I have decades of PTA experience, president at New Lebanon, president or co-president at Greenwich High School. All my public service, I think I have a, trying to think of the right word, I'm an open book. What you see is what you get. I don't think you can look back into anything that I haven't said that I was going to do or that I didn't do. I've listened, I've learned, and I've led. I don't look at party, I don't look at gender, I don't look at what part of town that you live in. Our role as select women is ombudsman, which we are basically your portal to government. And we get hundreds of emails. When I was on the Board of Education, I used to say that the issues that we deal with are very deep because you're dealing with people's children. On the Board of Selectmen, the issues are so broad. You have no idea what your next day is going to bring and what's going to concern people. And I respond to emails and I listen. I actually, there are people who stalk me and I still don't block them on social media. I put up with a lot of stuff and I will continue to put up with a lot of stuff, and I will remain steadfast, calm, polite, and kind, no matter what role that I'm in.
Thank you. Next question is for Lauren. Parking downtown has been a problem for decades. Many corporate lots are only partially full during weekdays and empty on evenings and weekends. What can you do to make parking better for downtown?
That's a great question. We've been trying to make these improvements for a while. We've done some different things with the parking services, put 15-minute meters, just to try to get people, out of spaces. There is a real distaste for parking garages. I think that's kind of a natural solution, and we have some opportunities to do that, but public sentiment is not necessarily, with that regard, especially women at dark, they might not feel as safe, even though Greenwich is, one of the safest locations. I know that we've had conversations like Pickwick buildings, that's where some of the commercial spaces are. We've talked about having some sort of public, call it a trolley, if we were to able to park, off-site. But we have an aging population, as well, and people would like to park and not walk as far. And it's just sort of the nature of the beast, I think, with, the space that we have. It might be helpful, should we be able to refurbish Havemeyer and create some additional parking there. I think a lot of people don't realize as well is that Town Hall is free. You don't have to pay to park. So if you were to park at Town Hall, I think that's another option. And maybe it's just education. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel?
Yeah. I've knocked on many doors, and this is something that I hear about a lot. And as a matter of fact, several weeks ago, I was canvassing in Putnam Park and met several older adults who say that they don't want to go to the senior center to do the activities because they can't find parking. And I just find that really sad because it means that their life just becomes smaller. And I think that's the last thing we want. We want people to be engaging in the community and out and being able to interact with everyone. And we want people to be able to get to work. Families want their kids to be able to walk to work. People ride their bikes in neighborhoods without being afraid that roads are unsafe or that they can just, move around town freely. And I think that we need to be resourceful as a town in seeking and finding funding opportunities. That's what I did as state representative. As I mentioned in my opening statement, I brought home $6.5 million for the Glenville Corridor Traffic Safety Project. I also got $450,000 for a crossroad at the intersection of Byron and Pembroke Roads with Route 1. And I think we send a lot of money up to Hartford. We need to get some of that back, and we need to figure out what we can get to work on these issues and address this problem, because it is a real problem.
Great, thank you. This question came up a couple times and was a conversation topic on Neighbor Day at the firehouse. What should the relationship be between the Round Hill Volunteer Fire Department and the town? Funds have been authorized to improve Round Hill Firehouse, but seems little has been done, and the costs continue to increase. How could you expedite this? Also, with the much talked about but never built Northwest Firehouse, how can the town better protect the larger homes in backcountry, particularly given there are no fire hydrants and most of us are in 2 and 4 acre zones? That one goes to Rachel.
Yes, so as I mentioned, I live over on John Street, and I know that we've been waiting for adequate fire coverage for years. When I served on the RTM, I pushed for action, and along with my colleagues on the RTM, we passed a sense of the meeting resolution to get improved fire coverage. Ultimately, what we got was a study which acknowledged that we need improved fire coverage. In 2020, the study by Matrix confirmed that we needed that, and nothing has happened. I've stood in front of the DET and the RTM on numerous occasions to ask that they approve funding for renovation at the Round Hill Volunteer Fire Station, because we need to have the resources to respond to emergencies in a timely manner. Last spring, the RTM voted to approve the funds for the Round Hill Volunteer Fire Company to move forward with its renovations. And I know the plans are ready, and I'm hoping that we see shovels in the ground soon. I don't know where that stands, but I have a strong record of supporting fire responders when I was a state rep. And we need to be doing the same and provide firefighters with the support they need to be able to do their jobs of protecting the residents back here.
Thank you. Lauren.
Thank you. As I mentioned, my stepfather was a firefighter, career firefighter. I actually talked to Chief McHugh just before I came. I think they're meeting with the Round Hill Volunteers tomorrow. I support making sure that Round Hill has equitable coverage. You deserve to have the coverage that you need to feel safe and protected. And across our town, we have a combination of career and volunteer firemen. And I believe that as, I'm not the fire commissioner, I know our first selectman is, but I know that, we work towards making sure that the career and the volunteer firemen are working together. There is money in the budget for a new tanker for Round Hill, and I just support doing anything that I can in my position to advocate for getting, the coverage that you need here.
Thank you, Lauren. My next question goes to Lauren. The question is Greenwich safe? One of the recent car thefts involved a gun. What is being done to curb this kind of theft, and what can be done? In backcountry, there have been multiple stories of thieves jumping over gates and stealing cars.
Greenwich has been rated, one of the safest, communities in the state, in the country. As it relates to car thefts, Chief Heavey will say all of them had the keys left in the car. So that's the first thing that everyone needs to do, is not leave your fob or key in the car. We're a target, people know it. They're like, come to Greenwich because they leave their keys in the car. So if we, we're almost bringing it upon ourselves. I know that's really harsh to say. We also have, very high-end merchandise on Greenwich Avenue. I know a lot of people complained about, not having the traffic cops directing traffic. I miss that as well. But the organized crime, shoplifting, it's very pervasive, because again, it's a place to come because there's wealthy merchandise or expensive merchandise. So we do have the officers that are undercover. We have a unit that is protecting the businesses on Greenwich Avenue. And I would say that we have selective enforcement. Anytime somebody calls the police and says, I don't feel safe, they're sending somebody out here. We had a conversation at an event the other night where you can say if you're leaving out of town and the police will watch your home. So they call it dark house. So if you're out of town, call the police and they'll swing by and make sure nobody's breaking in.
Got it, thank you. Rachel.
Yes, this question has come up in every debate that I've attended, and I've been going out in the community, and I've heard so many concerns about public safety. I've heard about the safety of our school buildings, concern about fire safety, unsafe and distracted driving. Those of you who live on Port Chuck Road know a lot about that, and I live on John Street, as I've mentioned a few times now, and people gave up on John Street a long time ago. And I see that. I bike on these roads a lot, and I run on these roads a lot, and I see how dangerous they can be. I know there was talk of putting in the speed cameras around the schools, but that's been put on hold, and maybe Lauren might have more insight into why it's been put on hold. And also, as you mentioned, car thefts, which continue to be a problem, especially in backcountry. We can and must tackle these issues. As I said earlier, we need to make sure that our police and fire department have the resources that they need to do their work, and I'm committed to doing that and to making a plan for safer roads and neighborhoods here and throughout the town, and above all, making sure that our schools are safe places for children.
Great, thank you. That's our last question. This one starts with Rachel. Westchester Airport noise and traffic have gotten worse, with low-flying helicopters literally causing vibrations to backcountry homes. We also get low-flying recreational planes, particularly on the weekends, Sunday nights. How can your office help alleviate this and protect our privacy and quality of life? I was told that at one point in the past, helicopters and planes were told to fly over the Merritt Parkway to land at Westchester Airport. Not sure how long ago that was or if that's possible, but that is to Rachel.
Yes, so once again, I live on John Street, and I hear those planes, especially on summer evenings. They are flying very low. I've attended several meetings in Westchester to talk about the expansion of the airport, or the potential expansion of the airport. I hope that never happens. I think as select people, we need to work with the town of Westchester, or the city of Westchester, to advocate for our neighborhood and make sure that they're abiding by the rules. Make sure that and that we don't expand the airport. I think as much as it is convenient when traveling, we need to make sure that we control the growth of that airport and the planes that are flying so low, because it is a big problem.
There's also a curfew that's self-imposed, but no one really follows the curfew, so you got planes all night long. Sorry, back to Lauren.
So I live in Glenville, and I also hear the planes. There was a task force during COVID. There's 7 or 8 municipalities that are all affected by this, and we started to meet to think about how do we represent ourselves as a collective. I know there's somebody in the audience that is kind of holding that mantle now and participated in authoring a resolution to the County of Westchester on things like noise pollution, water pollution, allowing the small planes to continue to fly in there, not to get over-commercialized, to improve parking. If you tried to park at Westchester County Airport lately, you really can't park there. So I totally support, I'm impacted as well, and I feel that with the 8 or so municipalities collectively adding their voice, it's not just a Greenwich thing, it's our neighbors in New York that feel the same way, that, just like the neighborhood association coming in front of the Board of Selectmen and getting things done, I will support the efforts of my fellow municipalities to voice our concerns to the County of Westchester.
Great, thank you, Lauren. It's time for closing remarks. Up first is Rachel, 3 minutes.
Thank you again, Brendan. Thank you again to the Round Hill Association and to all of you for being here this evening, and thank you to Lauren. I'm running for Selectwoman because I love Greenwich and I love helping people. When I served as state representative, I met with constituents on a regular basis. And early on during my term, I heard from a local firefighter about how job-related exposures were putting them at risk for getting sick, and they were struggling to get disability coverage for exposure-related cancer diagnoses. That just seemed wrong, so I made it my mission to make it right and show them that we have their back as they have ours. I'm proud to say that I worked with colleagues on both sides of the aisle and to create a Firefighters Cancer Fund, and it's a step toward better coverage for our first responders. I worked hard in other ways to deliver for my district. I secured more than $100 million in funding for school construction, for traffic and pedestrian safety projects, and to secure funding for our nonprofits. I've delivered results for Greenwich and will continue to do so if elected selectwoman. As a former small business owner, I know what it means to listen to customers. And as state representative, I have a record of working collaboratively across the aisle and even breaking with my party and voting for what's in the best interest of my constituents. Some of you may know I'm a triathlete, and that requires discipline and perseverance to train almost every single day, rain or shine, hot or cold. It also requires a healthy respect for expert advice in order to succeed. I understand what it means to do the work and put in the time. That's how I approach public service and how I'll lead. I love Greenwich, just like all of you, but I know that we can do better. We've seen enough of plan as you go. It's time to be proactive in planning for the future of the town. It's time for fresh voices. We want to protect homes from flooding and fire. We want children to be able to walk to school and older adults to be able to park and use the services of the senior center in town. We want our public schools supported. And if we can't do this in Greenwich, then where can it be done? It's time to stop coasting and get to work. I'm a public servant at heart, and it's been a great honor serving you through my work on school PTAs, nonprofits, on the RTM, and as your state representative. And I humbly ask for your vote to be your select woman. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Lauren.
Thank you, Round Hill Association, for hosting this forum and the role that you play in preserving the beauty and integrity of backcountry. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Rachel. It's always a privilege to be with the residents who care so deeply about the community and its future. Over the past years, I've worked hard to ensure that every part of Greenwich, including Round Hill, receives the attention and respect that it deserves. I believe in a town government that listens, that responds, and that delivers practical results. Whether it's improving road maintenance and drainage, advancing plans for full-time fire coverage, or coordinating a storm response and communication, my focus has always been on solving problems before they become crises, what I call fix it before it breaks. I understand the importance of protecting open spaces and the rural character that makes this area so special. I will continue to stand up for local control in land decisions and resist the one-size-fits-all housing mandates from Hartford. Greenwich can meet its housing goals while preserving the unique qualities that define each neighborhood. That balance between progression and preservation is what good local government is all about. I'm proud of the progress that we've made on public-private partnerships, where residents and the town come together to improve safety, beautify public spaces, and make informed investments without placing additional pressures on taxpayers. I think it's 30% of our town is over the age of 55. 20% of our town is over the age of 65, so just some statistics. 30% of our town is what is called ALICE, Asset Limited, Income Constrained, but Employed. So those are the types of things that I think about. And that's fiscal responsibility in action, and that's how Greenwich stays strong. As your select woman, I see my role as both an advocate and connector, helping residents navigate issues large and small, and ensuring that voices from every corner of town are heard and are at the decision-making table. Accessibility, accountability, and trust are not just words for me, they're the foundation in which I lead. And I am a real leader, I'm not a fake leader. I think fake is the opposite of real. I've raised my family, served on PTA, the RTM, the Board of Education, and now the Board of Selectmen. I love this community and the people who make it what it is. I'm running another term because there's still more work to do. We're not perfect. We need to strengthen our infrastructure, protect our environment, keep taxes affordable, and ensure that Greenwich remains the premier community to live, work, and grow old. I'm going to grow old here. I know that a lot of people are moving out of Connecticut, but I'm not one of them. Thanks for your engagement, your partnership, and your confidence, and together we will keep Greenwich strong, and I respectfully ask for your vote, either early voting on October 20th or November 4th.
Thank you, Lauren and Rachel. Round of applause. We'll take a 15-minute break and go to our first
A couple businesses. I started a couple of recycling companies, including being an officer at Greenwich Recycling, which was one of the first ones in the state. I've been a high school history teacher and several jobs in real estate. Also served on the RTM for 3.5 terms, chaired several boards and committees here in town, served on the task forces here and on the state level. And for 11 years, I was a state rep for the 151st District, rising to Assistant Minority Leader, and wrote and introduced and got passed about 15 or 16 bills and co-wrote many other ones, including the distracted driving one and many others. 6 years ago, I was elected here in town, and it was an honor to be the first selectman in the last 6 years. And we promised change, and we identified a lot of things that we wanted to do. And one of them was to basically marry what we all loved about Greenwich with a bright, bold future. We respect our past, but we need to evolve a little bit, and this is the reason why we meet constantly I meet constantly with the department heads. I'm in contact with the chiefs almost every day now, and have for 6 years. But there's a reason why Greenwich was rated in the last 2 years in one study 87th safest town in the United States, and in one we were rated the 10th safest town in the United States, not Connecticut, the United States. Each gave us an A+ rating in livability and safety, and most recently we had the Travel and Leisure had us up there as one of the best towns to live in on the East Coast. But are we perfect? No, we are. I've been to almost all 169 municipalities as a state rep. We are by far the best run town in the state of Connecticut. We have the greatest civic involvement. But are we perfect? No. This is the reason why we do what we do. If you get happy with a #1 rating or a good ranking, you start to slip, and you have to continue to evolve. And that's what we've done. And whether it's hiring Joe Lasella as our Emergency Operations Director, which is a steal for our town, or Chief McHugh, or restructuring some of the offices of the police and the fire, we are ready to go, and we are the safest town in the state of Connecticut. Thank you.
Thank you. First question starts with Fred. While the Town of Greenwich website provides useful information, the back end remains clumsy when it comes to renewing recreation cars, finding specific details regarding the building department and zoning, paying taxes, etc. What can be done to make our digital footprint more streamlined and user-friendly? What about an app for the town?
Well, thank you very much. So we've been working with Tom Klein at IT, and one of the things I've asked is when you're doing a building or renovation to your house, right? For years and years and years, a lot of my friends are builders here, and I've worked for them when I was younger, so I do hear the complaints going back decades. And so people would get a lot of sign-offs from all these departments, and then all of a sudden they're getting ready to move in, but they can't get a CO because there's something missing. So I've got all the departments, they've finished doing it now, and it'll be online in the first quarter of 26, where you would go on the one page and you'll see all of the various permits that you need and things that have been checked off once you've done that. It's going to be a lot better for the user, meaning the resident, but also something else that's very important to me is it will take foot traffic out of town hall. We have 600 or 700 visitors there a day. I talk about things that keep me up. I worry about public safety, even though, again, these #1 rankings, it doesn't mean anything if somebody comes in there that's intending to do some harm. So we're going to be trying to harden those targets, and we're going to be not only working on the physical structure of the building, but also getting that number down from 600 or 700 to a much more manageable level. I think I'm running out of time. Thank you.
Yeah, so, I mentioned that my second career was in software development. I worked at very large corporations and small startups as well. Software isn't easy, but software is something that I know pretty well. And, the first thing that I would say is that there's a lot out there that we could leverage that we aren't already. We're behind, and it's evidenced in just the simple things, which is log on. You need a different password to get a dog license, to get your parking pass, to get your Beats pass. It's all different. There are single sign-on solutions that are out there that are useful, but you're going to need someone who's an expert in this to really make it happen. I don't mean me. I actually mean our town clerk candidate, who is Megan McCrary, who's a software engineer herself. She actually delivered on her own in free time 203.vote, which is a software that puts the RTM's members, their record, and all the votes at your fingertips. And she did it like that. As our row A candidate for town clerk, I would urge you take a look at her background because she's going to make things a lot easier in the future. I say no to PDFs and no to walking into town hall with a PDF you had to print out online.
Thank you. Next question starts with Anthony. Excuse me. Town government is confusing to many, particularly new residents. We have the Board of Selectmen, BOS, the Board of Estimate and Taxation, BET, Representative Town Meeting, RTM, and the Board of Education, BOE. They're all elected. Additionally, there are a variety of volunteer boards and commissions. How do you explain to a new resident how our government works, and are there better ways of governing, like a single town council and a mayor? Knowing that this is not something you can unilaterally change, is this something you would support?
Well, so it's certainly, I am someone who knows that it's how difficult it is to understand this government because I have covered governments around the country, and we have to admit that New England is quite unique. Now, there are some pluses to our uniqueness that I think are commendable. First of all, we encourage the public to actually be part of our government. We are very representative in that way. The 5th largest legislature in the country, 24 boards and commissions, and to your point of view, a very distributed government. So these are good things that encourage informed voting and informed voters and make people understand the value of public service and, again, of our democracy. That said, explaining is what I do for a living in the journalism world. So, for instance, making things easier to understand by talking about our town legislature rather than the RTM, about talking about our finance board rather than the BET, about talking about even our first selectman says, you know, he's the mayor and Lauren is the vice mayor. It's easy for other people to get that. Those simple things could be a beginning of educating our community to get more involved because that's something that we can put in our own control rather than looking for something crazy like charter change.
Got it.
A few years ago, former Stanford Mayor David Martin was teaching a course at UConn at Stanford, and he wanted me to come there to talk about local governance, and he admitted to me, and he's a very, very bright guy, and he says, I still don't get Greenwich. I still don't get it. So it gets very, I always tell people to, you know, if you come to town, serve in the RTM. Serve it, you'll learn your way around town government. When Lauren and I got elected, we were told that you couldn't really fill all these boards, committees, and commissions. There's just too many spots. Well, we've appointed, I don't know how many, 400, and we built a bench. That is the best way to get people to understand our town government, involvement. And so, you know, sometimes they get involved and they learn a little bit about it when they're doing a project at home. And sometimes, you know, I've heard over the years, even when I was a teenager, some of the complaints about that. So the more we can get people involved, and you hear some of the best ideas will come from our residents who are actually involved and volunteering. So I get calls all the time on this. People think I'm crazy, but I've given my cell number out. I get it on the radio, and people call me at all hours. People stop over my house. People see me, as I said, I don't come at them, I come from them. These are the same people I've known a lot my whole life, and they see me at the same places. And so we have these conversations at Joey B's or Rinaldi's or Chicken Joe's.
The next question is for Fred. Over the next few years, large development projects will be completed downtown. We're seeing single-family homes being replaced with multi-unit condominium buildings. At the same time, we have aging infrastructure. What can the town do about sewers and the roads? How would we work with private water and electric utilities to make sure we have adequate facilities for all of our residents?
Well, that's something that, we work, Joe Lasella has been terrific working and lining up discussions with the utilities. I'm a big proponent of burying the lines, but it's not that easy. You have to get everybody on the same page, and the time to do it is when you're digging up a road. Not that easy, because again, you have to get everybody to agree to do it. But every project we do now, it's one of the things that keeps me up at night is the flooding issue. Every single town in Connecticut, all 169 municipalities, and probably every town in America has this issue. So when we do projects now, I'll hear a lot of builders who are friends will call me up and complaining about the sewer departments, really making them jump through hoops. But there's a reason for that. And again, I'm more for streamlining government, and we've done that in some cases, which is great. But again, a lot of these houses were built, these buildings were built 60, 70 years ago. They were built in valleys. And there was 3 places over near me where they keep flooding out. And so we worked with one of the agencies to get a grant for 159 towns to work on flood mitigation for them. And we've also spent millions of dollars on flood mitigation and actually solved the problem in Pemberwick just in the last few years, and also worked with the federal government for $35 million for the 2 bridges there. But I can go on and on about that one, but it's a really, really important issue.
Got it, thank you. Anthony?
Yeah, look, what Greenwich needs most is an honest, transparent, multi-year capital planning process that aligns our future projects with our capacity to pay. And developing that kind of a plan is the First Selectman's core responsibility. It reflects our community values and priorities, and our First Selectman should channel those. I don't believe that's been happening in the way that it should, and as First Selectman, I will make sure to bring that back, and I know Rachel is aligned with me on this, that strategic capital planning is really the only way that we can, A, provide a framework for our community to understand the needs we have, but then secondly, to collaboratively work together with our community and then lead into the BET to have them figure out how to fund it.
Thank you. Next question to Anthony. American Can in Northwest Greenwich is being converted to housing, while several other facilities on King Street are at different stages of approval. How do we handle the additional traffic for backcountry and the sewer needs, and how do you effectively work with the communities in New York State?
Well, so look, let's first talk about the development that's taking place in town. Whether it's out at American Can or whether it's downtown right now behind the Catholic Church, we're seeing these multifamily buildings get created. And if you talk to planning and zoning, they say there's about 1,000 units right now that are sort of approved by P&Z and sitting in sort of a backlog there waiting for developers to decide to put the shovels in the ground. These are projects that were approved under our rules. We're not talking about hostile 830Gs where litigation resolved the matter. With that backlog sitting there, it is incumbent on us to think about, again, a strategic plan for how we address the services that will be needed in order to include these new units and these new people in there. From a traffic perspective, I can tell you as a member of the Transportation Committee and now chairman of the Transportation Committee for the last 2 years, we have the opportunity to manage our traffic better if we actually bring an expert on board to do it. We got rid of our traffic czar, our superintendent of traffic engineering, ages ago, and we're paying the price by not having someone do that full time.
We'll touch on that more later. Great.
Yeah, that would be great. So I don't think you can't separate 830G from this issue, because that is a 35-year-old law that allows developers to go around local zoning. So we only have a few things at our disposal to stop some of these projects. Sewer is one of them. We've actually stopped a few because of that. Also, but our Planning and Zoning Commission really has to abide by state law and also try to protect the integrity of the town. And so they do a really good job balancing it. I know people get upset sometimes when some of these projects are approved, but they're doing all they can. And again, I have testified, I think I'm the first selectman that's ever testified in Hartford several times on this. And we beat back all these laws lately. And again, I see Tina Corpus here. I want to thank you for assisting us this year, and certainly Senator Fazio, who's not here, was very, very helpful in that. But again, talk is cheap. You know, and we've been showing them, under my administration, we've gotten our housing up, affordable units up close to 15%. And even Governor Lamont has bragged about Greenwich leading the way on that. So it's getting affordable units, and I know a little bit about it because my grandmother lived in Armstrong Court, and I knew what affordable units looked like years ago. But now if you look at them, they look like townhomes. It's beautiful. It gives people dignity and pride living there, but we're also doing it locally. Again, you can't separate the two.
Got it. Next question, similar, starts with Fred. Traffic and safety continue to be an issue for backcountry and throughout Greenwich. According to CT Insider, in the 2 months since the town of Washington, Connecticut activated 2 speed cameras, drivers are starting to slow down. Between May and July, the Washington Police Department said it issued over 6,000 tickets, amounting to over $300,000 in fines. Could raising money in this way provide funding for better traffic and safety solutions? Greenwich plans to use the traffic cameras only in school zones. Would you support them in other parts of town where speeding and safety are an issue? Why was the plan to use it in school zones announced last week canceled the next day?
Okay, thank you for the question. So yes, I'm not for cameras for raising revenue. I'm for cameras for providing more safety. Yes, the money's helpful, but that's not it. I know a lot of people don't like the cameras because of the Big Brother thing. I get that too. But the delay is because the vendors caused it. I spoke with Chief Evie a few minutes ago before we started. It's the vendor, but it's going to go into school zones, and then we're going to look at other places. We're also looking at traffic in including my own neighborhood, ways to slow the traffic down. You know, we had 14,000 cars in 1969 with 59,000 people. There's 64,500 people here now, but we have a lot more cars here. We have about 54,000, and they're on this here. But good news is, we applied to the state for a grant to get the smart technology off of exit 3. We were the first town to get that. It doesn't cure the traffic problem, but it has helped a lot. And I reached out to them again and said, could you identify a couple trouble spots on the post road that are really problematic? And going back and forth, they did better than that. They've agreed to put smart technology from one end of town, from the Stamford border to the Portchester border. So that's going to be all within 12 months. So we've been very proactive on that. But again, we have to compete with 160 other municipalities, and we were number 1 there.
Great, thanks. Anthony, do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so, you know, the first selectman and I, we talk occasionally about traffic around town, and what I will tell you is, you know, I know he's concerned about it just as I am. The difference that we have here is, this is not something that can be solved by point solutions. Yes, it's good that we have some ideas about how to slow traffic using special lights and speeding tickets and things like that. But what you really need is a superintendent of traffic engineering, a traffic czar. When we got rid of that position in 2009, it was like turning off your GPS and wondering why you're lost. It's the kind of role that could assess just how traffic is moving in backcountry, because the job is what's happening on top of the streets for this person. It's the network of traffic. So from a network perspective, all right, you could have someone the buck stops with them. It's the same kind of role that might have recognized that the stop and go confusion was going to happen on Greenwich Ave when we removed the cops, which, by the way, I don't support putting the cops back on the avenue, but we got to handle the confusion that resulted. And it's a superintendent of traffic engineering could do that. It's the kind of role that could develop safe routes to school for kids. this is what we're going to do. We're going to start not from a point solution, but we're going to start from a network perspective, and we're going to make sure that people slow down in the backcountry and the cut-throughs are reduced.
Got it, thanks. Next question for Anthony. What do you think is the best use of the Havamar building going forward? Several plans have been proposed. One envisions that it will become a hotel, restaurant, and event space. Another proposes that it will become a performing arts center with residential components. Which of these plans, if either, do you prefer and why? How will parking and traffic be handled in what is already a very busy intersection? And where will the Board of Education be relocated? Those are a lot of questions, but.
Right, well, I mean, look, so first of all, I can tell you what's not the best use of the Havemeyer building. It's not the best use of the Havemeyer building to take it off the books and sell it off for parts. That's a bad idea. Just because there's a lot of deferred maintenance on that, because we've kicked the can down the road like we have on so many other things in Greenwich and so many of our assets. It's exactly the kind of thing that it's easy to say, well, let's just give it to somebody else and they'll figure out what to do with it. That's not the way to handle it. The way to handle it is to start with a public discussion. Instead of starting with an RFP to people outside and then coming back and saying, here's 3 ideas they got, pick one. I think we need to start with what the public wants. And I can tell you from knocking on the doors downtown and elsewhere that the old timers will tell you, I used to go down to Greenwich Ave, and there were things that I could do with my family. There was a bowling alley, there was a couple of cinemas, there was places to eat, a grocery store. I'm not saying that's the use of the Havemeyer building, but it's the kind of conversation we could have. We've heard from a number of people that an arts and entertainment center might be great. And all of these things are how you start. So you start with the ideation and the design, and only then do you flip over to the developers and the RFPs. What we're not going to do is make it a hotel, because that makes it something not for people in Greenwich, rather than something for people in Greenwich.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to correct a couple of statements here. Number one, we're not selling it off at all. It's going to be a town property forever, or as long as I'm first selectman. The reason why, when I ran for office, I did not want to be a caretaker. I didn't want to tread water, just get reelected every 2 years. I wanted to be transformational in a way that people would look back and say, you got something done. This building, it's unbelievable. It's been housing, it's 53,000 square feet. The Board of Ed uses about 19,000 square feet. It's falling apart. My dad went to that school in the 1930s. Right? I know a little bit about it, okay? And what I did is, we had a discussion. We did a couple task forces. Andy Deuce did a great job, former member of the Board of Estimate and Taxation. And this came from the residents themselves. And we had some ideas. They had some ideas. These were people with professional backgrounds. I see David Weisbrod there. He served on a great task force that saved a $600 million asset that the town was going to sell off for $15 million in 2020. So I always tap into our own expertise here. These are our neighbors and friends that serve on these boards. But it's not done yet. The task force took in all these suggestions. I would still like to see that auditorium redone. It's not done by a long shot, but we have to that will transform a whole area, which, by the way, goes dark at 4 o'clock every day. It shouldn't be. It should be better used. It's been underused for decades.
Thank you, Fred. Next question is for you, Fred. What is your vision for redevelopment of the area downtown towards the waterfront, including relocation of the town's brick building next to the dock for the ferries? What vision do you have for the area? How can it be integrated with Greenwich Avenue and possibly the Police Museum?
So in 2019, that was one of the issues I ran on. I ran on getting the Civic Center done and public transport, pedestrian safety, public-private partnerships, environment, energy, policy, all that. But I also have a vision, and we did an RFP, and we put it back in the budget last year, where you would take this garage that's housing trucks, they're changing oil there, and it was really the most expensive property probably in town, and they've been doing that since the 1950s, right? And so I said, why not think bigger? So we've gotten 2 and possibly 3 pledges for a lot of money to fix up. If you haven't seen the plans, they're really nice. The one snag was, what do we do with the operations of Parks and Rec? We've figured out that the dump is, well, the transfer station, but that's what town is called. The transfer station is the best place for it. So that's the holdup. That's about $15 million probably to redo. So I put something in the budget to try and find a grant to do that. But that was the number one thing. It's never been discussed before until 6 years ago. I'm going to put it back in the budget, and the new BET, the Republican members I've spoken to are going to support that. So again, and I'm looking at a few of them here, and hopefully they've been, David and whoever else, I don't want to miss anybody, hopefully they'll be supportive of it going forward. But we will recapture money with public-private partnerships and grants.
Thank you. Anthony?
You know, so I think Fred and I are in agreement that there is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to transform, Greenwich's downtown and connect finally, the areas on the top of the avenue down past the highway, past the railroad station, and onto the waterfront and open that all up. I have had the good fortune to live in communities on the water around this country, and I can tell you that these things are visionary accomplishments for communities. And we've got this opportunity now, and in part it's because of the Havemeyer building, in part because there's a recognition that we haven't done much. Greenwich Avenue's community survey or community committee in 2010 put together a report about the future of Greenwich Avenue, and it became like a lot of things in Greenwich. It became a strategic plan sitting on a shelf. So there's been a lot of activity, but I want to talk for a minute about the leadership. It takes leadership to make that happen. It's not enough to put it in a budget. It's not enough to talk about it. It's not enough to convene a committee. You really have to use the bully pulpit, the power of the bully pulpit to bring our community together. And that's the kind of vision that I intend to use and the kind of way in which I intend to use it.
Thank you. Our next question is for Anthony. A large portion of domestic and restaurant workers are in various shades of legality. If ICE were to come to Greenwich, would you allow our town government to assist them? This is a real issue facing many towns and cities across the country.
Yeah, so first of all, we will abide by the law, and we will not go beyond that. We know that there is state law, and there is state law that limits and controls how we use our police, and we're going to use our police in that way. I think our police have a lot more to do than help ICE figure out who they want to detain and what they want to do with them. I think our police should be working on ensuring that with the reduced workforce they have, they can control the 11 posts that they have, and that they can respond quickly to the calls that they have. I don't think we should go beyond that.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify, they're not allowed to contact ICE under the Trust Act. So what happens is if somebody gets pulled over and they're arrested, it goes into a system, and the feds get alerted right away, and they will look to see if that person is a criminal. So that doesn't happen there. So just want to clarify that. So we agree on this. As long as I'm first selectman, Greenwich is not going to be a sanctuary town, right? We will abide by the law. We don't pick and choose which laws we like and they're going to follow, like some mayors have done in Connecticut, which puts a target on their back and the backs of all their constituents. So no, we will follow the law. Now, that said, is there a way? We all know some people that are here illegally or their visas ran out and there's no path to citizenship for them. And in one case, I'm working with somebody who he needs to get married. He doesn't even have a girlfriend, so I work with the federal government. Yeah, I'm not a matchmaker, but I feel bad for him. He loves this country, and he says, you know what, I support the president closing the border and making the country safer and getting the criminals out. But there is something called the Dignity Act. It hasn't been voted on yet in Washington. It's bipartisan. A Republican and a Democrat have introduced it to create a path to citizenship. And if somebody came here legally and then maybe the visa ran out, yes, there should be a penalty for that, but not one that's going to burden them to where they can never be a citizen. Because we all know people that are here, they're working hard, they love America, and they really add value here. So yes, there should be a path to citizenship, but done the right way, because if you cut corners too much, then it becomes an insult to those who came here legally.
Thank you. Our next question starts with Fred. Poorly maintained infrastructure has been an issue at multiple town buildings, including the old police and fire headquarters, the Havamar building, and multiple schools. Why is Greenwich government reluctant to fund and perhaps even issue long-term bonds to finance what are long-term assets, rather than commit funds only for the near term?
Well, again, let me state what's fact. When most of these buildings that have failed, in fact, everything under my term has been a Board of Education building, it hasn't been a town building. I'm the one who actually brought it up about the Havamar building and putting it front and center, and there is a plan there. But not everybody agrees on it, and it's easy to run for office and say, you know, if I'm there, I'm going to handle it, it's going to get done right away. That doesn't happen. What you do is you provide leadership. Government is tough, and Greenwich government, it's very decentralized. My other friends who are mayors and first selectmen around the state laugh because it takes a long time to get things done, but we get them done. And so, again, we're working on things like the Havamar building. We're going to be getting the teen center back shortly, right? That needs some work done. Not as much as the Havamar building, but we'll put a task force there together, figure out, we've done an internal audit, we're going to do an outside audit on that in the coming months. So there's a lot of, it's exciting, there's opportunity here now. Again, when I took the office, the Civic Center wasn't done. I was playing basketball there in the 80s when the roof was leaking, and they were talking back in the 80s. Former First Selectman Tom Ragland put together a committee in 1996, and they basically came up with 80% of what we got done a couple of years ago there, but people kept saying no, no, no. It was Democrats, Republicans, it didn't matter. Different RTMs, different First Selectmen. We got it done through a public-private partnership and by leading.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, I mean, first of all, you know, we're running on fix it before it breaks. It's a heck of a lot cheaper to fix something before the asset is broken. And Rachel and I are going to make sure that we maintain the assets that we have in a way that doesn't require us to fix things in an emergency. We've already seen that come home to roost with Central Middle School, which had to be fixed in an emergency, etc. But what's worse is not only are we talking about things that we haven't adequately planned for, is that we've been erasing those future capital projects from the future capital plan. As I mentioned earlier, we need to have a multi-year capital plan. And I appreciate the fact that it's difficult to maintain one that's 15 years, and I know my opponent here chose not to maintain a 15-year capital plan because it gets fuzzy in the 15 years. But we should be able to maintain a credible 5-year capital plan, and that way we could then use the option of longer-term bonding or other methods that the BET should choose to use to develop those projects over a multi-year time frame. We're not doing any of that now. Everything we do is year over year, and we don't have that collective long-term process.
Thank you. Our next question is back to Anthony. Where do you stand on 401k plans versus pensions for town employees?
Right.
Are our pensions, particularly our healthcare plans for retirees, adequately funded?
Right, so this is a tough one. Like, I know, for instance, that one of the reasons that it's harder to retain our police officers is that they can take their money and run, and they can go to a town, they learn everything here, and then they take their 401k and they go to wherever they live, which now is getting further and further out. And we don't get the benefit of having a long-term employee who's served the town for a long time, but we train him, so it's costly to do that. Pensions would potentially fix that problem, but I don't know that that's the right answer either, because we've found ourselves both as a state and as a town having trouble funding those pensions over time. So it's clearly something that has to have attention paid to it, but being very careful that we don't throw out the baby with the bathwater by flipping over to one or sticking with the other.
Well, the fire department was the last one to go to the defined contribution rather than defined benefit. The reason why the town started doing that years ago was they looked at other municipalities, cities that went bankrupt. And so they wanted to stay on top of that. So we have that 401k type of setup. What my opponent mentioned there is about police leaving, getting trained and leaving. And so we looked at that, and that was true. And so it wasn't a crisis, but it was happening. And the chief and I would go over this, and the deputy chiefs. So what we started to do is we started to recruit cops from New York City who weren't being paid as much. And they served 20 years, some were 40 years old, early 40s. So we were getting them, and they were actually way more experienced. It wasn't like a 20-year-old kid that was just going to the academy. So we've been filling the gaps that way. And it ebbs and flows. Sometimes we're close to full strength at 152. Right now we're at 142, about to go to 143 because there's some retirements that happen sometimes. And we have people in the academy, but we're gonna get about 3 or 4 back up and running shortly. But we've had to adjust, and I think by going and getting some of the recruitments from places like New York City has helped the town a lot. It's brought a lot of experience here, and again, we'll keep them sometimes for another 20 years. So sometimes when you get a bad situation, you got to make the best of it. You also have to see what comes out of it that will actually make you stronger.
Thank you. We're on our last question. This one is for Fred. Many in town still remember the days of the police officer directing traffic at many intersections along Greenwich Avenue. However, on weekends, it's become very difficult for cars to make turns or enter the avenue. It's not safe for pedestrians. Would you support bringing back police officers on the weekends to help make driving and walking around town safer?
So in my lifetime, I was one of those people that loved them with the white gloves there. And no other town does that, but it was something I was like, the cops hated it. It was basically, we had trained these guys, it was a $100,000 stop sign. They hated it. Every first selectman hated it, every police chief hated it. There was only 2 cops, Peter Genovese and Herbie Solomon, that liked being on it. The rest hated it. But they weren't allowed to leave their posts. They had to call in. When the jewelry store got robbed, they had to call in. Right now, we have 3 times the amount of police on the avenue as ever before, right? We have the undercover unit, we have the bicycle officers, and we have a patrol car there. But what people don't know is we've done traffic studies, both GPD and DPW, where the most pedestrian traffic is after 4 o'clock. They were never there at 4 o'clock. Also, the most vehicular traffic was on a Sunday. They were never there on a Sunday. So the intersection, we're much safer right now the way we have it. We're looking into, again, when COVID hit, we had a lot of people coming from New York. I saw 2 people in the first month go up the avenue and stop them. So, and I remember when it was 2 ways. We're still looking at ways. We were told about we wanted to get maybe a light. The state told us we had to go in the middle, which we don't want that looking like that. So we're trying to find a way to get maybe old-fashioned lights, and we're still looking at that right now. But there's always room for improvement.
Thank you.
Well, so this is one that Fred and I have talked about before a lot. I also don't believe putting police back on the avenue is a smart solution. However, the status quo is not tenable. And in my transportation committee in January this last year, we convened a meeting about this very issue, and we learned that the problem is not so much, whether there's cops on the avenue. It's completely confusing as to who goes next. These intersections are totally confusing. You step out and you're a pedestrian and there's 2 cars coming down the Greenwich Ave. They both stop, then you stop, and one of them goes and the other car goes, should I go? And then someone has a smartphone and they turn the corner on the little bricks because it now seems super safe. I can just be on the bricks. So we needed to raise that up. I did have a meeting with my opponent. We sat down. I explained that what we need to do is we need to have some solution that reduces the confusion. And I know we can't put crossing guards out there, but maybe town ambassadors, maybe some kind of learning program, maybe temporarily we put some cops in certain hours back on the avenue until we can figure out a solution that might include a traffic light or something. But it's status quo, it's not good. It's not good.
Thank you. That's our last question. We now are closing remarks. We'll start with Anthony. 3 minutes.
So thank you very much to my opponent. Thank you very much to Brendan. Thanks to all of you for listening. Wow, hour and a half. And nary a glass of wine consumed since we sat down. Wow. I want to talk a minute about leadership versus activity. You know, you can do a lot of things and still accomplish little. A couple of years ago on the same stage, you know, we heard candidates musing about traffic. Oh, maybe we should remind people to drive 3 seconds to their car, or maybe we could put a stop sign here. Or, oh, we heard about, you know, committees that were formed or something like that. People were consulted. But, you know, activity isn't leadership. Leadership is stepping in when others are spinning. It's recognizing that the first selectman's role is more than what's in the job description. It's taking on the hard problems, not just the easy ones. It's taking responsibility even for the things you don't fully control, because they matter to the quality of life in this town. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lead, not just where I'm statutorily asked to lead, but I'm going to lead where we need it. So I thank you for coming to this debate tonight. And as I said early on, an informed public is essential to a healthy democracy. And we certainly have one here in Greenwich, don't we? We should be happy about that. But as a former journalist, I know it takes time to build trust. Trust is the only currency a journalist has with the public. I came from the Walter Cronkite tradition. If there's any Gen Zers in here, Google it. He was known as the most trusted man in America. Trust requires acting in good faith on the behalf of others. It requires openness. It requires transparency, humility. Journalists make mistakes, and we must acknowledge them and correct the record when we do. This is what I will do. This is what I will bring to town hall. And I hope after this session that Rachel and I have made the case for a new era of fiscal responsibility and leadership in town. And if you entrust us with your vote, we will take that pact into public office, then we will listen, we will lead, and we will act. And I thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Fred. Oh, sorry. Please, sorry. Let's give respect. Sorry. Fred, sorry, 3 minutes.
You're off my list.
Sorry. I apologize.
Just kidding, but just kidding. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you again, Brendan and the Round Hill Association and my opponent for a very civil debate. As I mentioned the other night, as a candidate, you have 3 things to offer. You have your record, you have your vision, and you have your word. In 2019, I had no idea that I would be faced with 3 things right off the bat within a few months. We had the worst pandemic in 100 years, and Greenwich came out of it flying colors, and we transformed it. We took things that we couldn't have done before, and we capitalized on them. The old saying, you know, take advantage of a crisis, but we did that. We also were met with a $5 million hole because China stopped taking our recyclables. And I was a recycler, a volunteer in the business, and I helped write a law that expanded recycling in Connecticut. So we closed that gap without taking new taxes for that, and I was very proud of that. We did it through a transparent way. We gave them 2 options, and the RTM chose one, which was the tipping fee. And then again, I mentioned before that the previous administration was in negotiations to sell the air rights for 102 Greenwich Plaza for between $10 and $15 million. I knew nothing about air rights, but I knew that people in town did. And I put people on there, Democrats, Republicans, private sector, public sector. Again, one is in the audience now. And they worked really hard, and they came to an agreement, to a finding that in 2057, it was a very complicated 90-year deal, that we came very close to getting rid of it. And it was $600 million, it'll be $600 million worth, and it's worth in 2057. And the station that it was connected to, the developer was terrific to work with. They're doing that. They're doing everything that was going to be done for the $15 million. So we're getting a brand new train station there. It's the only privately owned one in the state. Very proud of that. But I also said I wanted to get an energy policy, and I created the Energy Management Advisory Committee. I said I wanted to focus on the environment and sustainability. I created a sustainability committee, and they've done a really, really good job and added things to the recyclable list and out of the waste stream. We've gotten a couple hundred more acres of open space, which is really keeping the green in Greenwich. And we did that through public-private partnerships. We got long-stalled projects over the line. Action, not words. We've done that all in 6 years. We've transformed the way we communicate with a weekly e-blast that was never done before, which goes to tens of thousands of people with about a 63% open rate, I believe. And we're on social media updating all the time. We've had new hires that have been off the charts. I've mentioned a few of them already that have done really well and positioned Greenwich for the future to not only continue being the best community in the country, but to even improve upon that. And the only way we do that is through participation with all of you here. So again, thank you so much. It's been the honor of a lifetime. I respectfully and humbly ask for consideration on November 4th. Thanks, and God bless.
Now, thank you, Fred. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you for coming. Have a great evening.